Welcome to the Nourish to Thrive podcast, faith-forward, science-backed strategies for women who want more energy, less weight, and real answers. I'm your host, Tanya Pennington-Miller, a functional nutritional therapy practitioner and functional blood chemistry specialist with a master's degree in applied clinical nutrition. If you're tired of feeling dismissed by your doctor, confused by your labs, and stuck in survival mode, you're in the right place. Here, we simplify the science, we get to the root, and we anchor it all in truth. Because God made your body to heal and thrive, not just survive. It just needs the right kind of support and less noise. Hello, my friend. Welcome into the Nourish to Thrive podcast. I'm so glad you're back with me today. We are continuing our series on sleep, and today I want to start something I hear all the time. And I heard it again just recently from a client who came in feeling really frustrated and even a little defeated. She said, I'm in bed by 9 o'clock every night. I don't drink. I don't have caffeine after noon. I really try to do everything right, but I am waking up so exhausted. And I'm wondering if this might sound familiar to you too. Here's what I told her and what I want to tell you today. The number of hours you spend in bed is only one piece of the bigger picture. What matters just as much, and even maybe more, is what your body is actually doing during those hours, because not all sleep is the same. And a lot of women are spending 7 or 8 hours in bed, but barely getting the kind of sleep that their body needs to repair, to restore, and to recover. So today we're going to dive deep into your sleep stages: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. So we're going to talk about what each one is doing for your body, what optimal actually looks like, and what it means when your data shows that you're not getting enough of one or more of them. So if you wear a wearable at night when you go to bed and you look at your sleep report in the morning, then this episode is going to make all of that data make a lot more sense. So I really think that we have been taught to think about sleep in one dimension: hours, right? Like 8 hours is good, 6 hours is not enough, 7 is probably fine. And while the duration does matter, it is nowhere near the whole story. The women I work with are often getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep by the clock, but they're still waking up exhausted, still gaining weight, still struggling with brain fog, still feeling like they're never fully recovered from the day before. And when we look at their sleep data, the pattern becomes really clear really quickly. They're getting enough hours, but not enough of the right kind of sleep. Deep sleep and REM sleep are not just stages on a pie chart, okay? They are stages where the most critical restoration happens. And for women in midlife especially, the distribution of those stages is often the first thing that shifts when our hormones, our cortisol, and our blood sugar start to change. So if you've been sleeping long enough and still feeling not your best, this is likely a big part of why. So let's talk about these 3 stages. You cycle through 3 stages throughout the night. So within each cycle, you move through light sleep, deep sleep, and REM. But here's what most people don't realize. The proportion of each stage changes across the night. So early in the night, your cycles are heavier on deep sleep. And as the night progresses, your cycles shift more toward REM sleep, which means the timing of when you fall asleep to when you wake up has a direct impact on how much of each stage you actually get. So let's start with light sleep. This is your entry point. It's where you transition in and out of the deeper stages, and it makes up the largest percentage of your total sleep time. So it's somewhere around 50 to 60%. And in this phase, your brain is actually still processing. Your body is still regulating temperature, it's still regulating heart rate, and you're cycling down toward the deeper stages. But light sleep is also where you are most easily disrupted. So a sound, a notification, a drop in blood sugar, a hot flash, a cortisol spike at 2 a.m., any of those things can pull you out of a deeper stage and back into light sleep. And when that happens repeatedly throughout the night, your deep and your REM totals really take the hit, even if your total sleep time on paper looks really good. Okay, let's move on to deep sleep. This is where your body does its most significant physical repair. This is the stage where human growth hormone is released, where cellular repair happens, where your immune system does a lot of its work, where your brain literally clears metabolic waste through your lymphatic system. This is also the stage most closely tied to physical recovery, to metabolic regulation, and blood sugar balance. I mean, this stage arguably is our most important sleep stage. And for most adults, the target for this deep sleep is somewhere between 13 and 23% of total sleep time. So if you're sleeping 7 hours, you want roughly 1 to 1.5 hours of deep sleep. When women are chronically under on deep sleep, the symptoms look a lot like what I described at the beginning of this episode. Fatigue that doesn't resolve with more hours in bed, slower metabolism, harder weight loss, increased cortisol, immune issues, brain fog. And here's what's really important to understand is that deep sleep is the stage most suppressed by cortisol. When your stress response is activated, when your nervous system doesn't feel safe, your body does not drop into deep sleep easily. It stays in that lighter stage, just ready to respond to a threat. Like this is your physiology doing exactly what God designed it to do. But it also means that a dysregulated nervous system and deep restorative sleep simply cannot coexist. We talked about this in the very last episode I did, the HRV episode, and I want you to see how these pieces connect because this is the same pattern showing up in every episode of this series because your nervous system is always upstream. Okay, let's move on to REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement. And this is the stage where your brain is the most active during sleep. This is where memory consolidation happens, where emotional processing occurs, where your brain sorts through the experiences of the day and integrates them. REM is also closely tied to mood regulation, to learning, creativity, and your hormonal balance. So for most adults, the target for REM is going to be somewhere between 20 to 25% of total sleep. So again, if you're sleeping about 7 hours, you're looking at roughly 1.5 to 2 hours of REM sleep being the goal. Okay. When your REM sleep is disrupted or shortened, the effects are going to show up emotionally just as much as physically now. So now we're seeing increased anxiety, difficulty regulating your mood, that feeling of emotional rawness or reactivity that so many women in perimenopause and menopause describe. We see poor memory, difficulty focusing, difficulty retaining information. And it's also really important to understand us ladies in perimenopause, we just cannot have that glass of wine before bed because our REM sleep is so heavily influenced by alcohol. And I'm talking even small amounts. It's even influenced by certain medications, and this includes some sleep aids. And that sounds crazy, I know. Sleep aids will knock you out, but they don't give you the quality restorative sleep that we're looking for. And it's also really affected by our body temperature. So this is why it's really important to make sure that our bedrooms are so nice and cool when we sleep at night. So REM sleep predominantly happens in the second half of the night, which is why cutting sleep short, even if it's just by an hour, can really disproportionately reduce our REM totals. So going to bed at midnight and waking up at 6 is not the same as going to bed at 10 and waking up at 4, even though both are 6 hours. The reality is going to bed earlier is generally better when it comes to protecting your REM sleep. The earlier sleep window aligns better with your natural cortisol and your melatonin rhythm, and it gives your body more time in the second half of the night where REM is more concentrated. So that doesn't mean that 10 o'clock is like a hard rule for everyone, but it does mean that consistently going to bed late and sleeping in is not a neutral trade. Your REM sleep is likely taking the hit. Now, let's talk about a few patterns that I see consistently that are really important to name here because they're specific to the women that I work with and probably for you if you are a listener of my podcast. And the first is progesterone. So when progesterone is in the optimal range, it has a very sedating and calming effect. It supports that transition into deep sleep and it helps the body stay there. When progesterone drops, as it does in perimenopause, falling asleep becomes harder. Staying asleep in deep sleep becomes harder. And that 2 to 4 a.m. wake up pattern becomes so much more common. And there's a reason for that specific window. It's often the point in the night where progesterone's calming effect has worn off and the body hasn't fully recovered its ability to stay in the deeper stages without it. Okay, second is blood sugar instability overnight, because when blood sugar drops during the night, cortisol steps right in, as it's designed to do, to bring our blood sugar levels back up. And that cortisol release is a sympathetic activation. It pulls you right out of deep sleep, often into light sleep or even into a full waking. Okay, and it suppresses the deeper stages for the rest of that cycle. And this is one of the most under-recognized drivers of poor sleep quality in women. And here's the thing, it is entirely addressable through nutrition. That's the good news. And we'll talk about that in a second. So third, your cortisol diurnal rhythm could be off. So cortisol should be low at night and rise naturally in the early morning hours to prepare you for waking. When that rhythm is off, when cortisol is still elevated in the evening, or maybe it's spiking too early in the wee hours of the morning, it directly suppresses our deep sleep and it's going to fragment our REM sleep. And this is why what happens during your day, so your stress load, your meal timing, your light exposure, all of that feeds directly into your sleep architecture at night. So when you look at your sleep data and you see that your deep sleep is low or your REM sleep is fragmented, I want you to resist the urge to immediately reach for a supplement or a sleep aid. Okay, those things have their place. And in fact, I'll talk about those here in just a minute. But they don't address the signal, right? Like they don't address the root cause. And until that root cause is addressed, your sleep architecture is going to keep reflecting the same patterns. So the first place I always look is blood sugar, okay? So if you are waking between 2 and 4 a.m. and you cannot fall back to sleep, blood sugar is very high on my list of suspects. So a small protein and fat snack before bed, something like a few bites of turkey and avocado or a spoonful of almond butter, can really help to stabilize blood sugar overnight and reduce those cortisol spikes. Okay, it sounds almost too simple, but it is so effective. Like I have seen this single shift change a woman's sleep data significantly within 1 week. I actually, because I was having some blood sugar dysregulation while I was pregnant, I would actually keep, I don't know if you've ever heard of a keto brick. You can just go directly to their website, ketobrick.com. I would keep little pieces of that on my nightstand because I was having this tendency, which was new to me, to wake up in the middle of the night. I would just reach over, take a bite or two, and I would be back to sleep in no time, which is how I knew it was blood sugar dysregulation waking me up. Not that I'm encouraging, eating in the middle of the night. However, if you have, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, it can help you to fall back to sleep if your sleep disruption is rooted in blood sugar dysregulation. Okay. The second place I look is evening cortisol. So what is happening in the 2 to 3 hours before bed? Do we have bright overhead lights in the house? Are we watching screens? Are we having intense conversations, checking our emails, scrolling through stressful content, watching the news? Like all of these things signal your nervous system to stay alert. So dimming the lights in the early evening as the sun goes down, reducing screen exposure, shifting toward quieter activities in the evening. These are all direct inputs into your cortisol rhythm and therefore your sleep architecture. You can also wear orange lensed blue light blocking glasses. I'll even put a link in here for you to this website has a bunch of them. You can even get a pair that goes directly over your seeing glasses if you wear seeing glasses. So if you know you're going to watch screens, maybe you like to watch a show with your partner in the evening, put these glasses on to at least cut out that blue light. It can be really, really helpful. The third piece, which connects back to everything we talked about in episode 1, meaning last week's episode 1 in this series, is overall nervous system load. So you cannot consistently get adequate deep sleep in a body that feels chronically unsafe. Addressing the total stress load, not just the hour before bed, but across your entire day, is foundational to restoring sleep architecture over time. And one more thing worth mentioning, and I want to be clear again that this is not a replacement for the root cause work that we just talked about, but magnesium glycinate and glycine, that combo, are 2 supplements that can genuinely support deeper and more restorative sleep while you're doing the deeper work. So magnesium glycinate helps calm the nervous system and supports that transition into the deeper sleep stages. Glycine, when taken before bed, has been shown to lower your core body temperature slightly. So this is actually one of the signals that your body uses to drop into that deeper sleep. So together, they're a really gentle, very well tolerated combination that I recommend often because they're so effective. If you're going to try them, take them about 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. I recommend a powder form, mix it with a little bit of water, not too much. You don't want to be getting up to pee. But drink that about 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. And I find that it really supports restful sleep. I will leave a link in the show notes to my favorite combo if you want to check that out. So I want to sit with something for just a moment before we close today. We talk about sleep like it's a problem to solve or a metric to optimize, like something to biohack, right? And I mean, I do understand that framing because when you're exhausted, and your data isn't where you want it to be, you want answers and you want them to work. But sleep, like real restorative sleep, requires something that our culture does not make easy. It requires surrender. It requires the willingness to stop producing, stop managing, stop holding everything together, and to just let it go for a few hours. And for a lot of women I work with, that is genuinely one of the hardest things to do, myself included. Psalm 127:2 says, "He grants sleep to those he loves." And I've thought about that verse a lot in the context of this work, not as a promise that like faithful people sleep perfectly, but as a reminder that rest is a gift, that it was never meant to be earned or forced or optimized into existence. It was designed to come from a place of trust. When we create the conditions for safety, when we nourish the body, when we honor the rhythm of evening and morning that God built into creation, we're not just following a protocol. We are aligning with a design that was always meant to sustain us. And your body knows how to sleep deeply. It was made to. Sometimes it just needs the environment to match that design. My friend, if today's episode is making you look at your sleep data differently, that is exactly the point. This is the kind of root cause thinking I apply to every system in the body inside my programs, not chasing symptoms, but reading signals and addressing what's actually driving them. So make sure you are subscribed so that you don't miss episode 3 of this series next week, where we are going to go into circadian rhythm and why your body clock is one of the most powerful health tools that you have access to. And if you have any questions for me that you would love to have an answer to, I can answer directly on this podcast in my Q&A sessions. Please send them to me on Instagram at tanya.pennington.miller because I love to hear from you. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I'll see you right back here next week, sister. That's it for today on the Nourish to Thrive podcast. If you found value here, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or send it to someone who's walking a similar path. Keep showing up, keep asking questions, and know that healing is possible, especially when you trust the one who designed your body to heal. Until next time, stay rooted in truth and nourished in grace.